Chicken casseroles are hands down my all-time favorite casserole to make. There are so many different casseroles that you could create in this world, from super fancy to not fancy at all. But today I'm going to be sharing my family's top 10 all-time favorite chicken casseroles with you. These chicken casseroles aren't your average, like boring, bland casserole. These casseroles are phenomenal, and once you start making them, you just won't stop. Let's get to my kitchen and let's get to casseroling. We're kicking today off with this chicken parmesan casserole. So I have a 9x13 baking dish right here. I sprayed it with plenty of nonstick spray. Now I'm going to add a 12-ounce box of uncooked bow tie pasta right into my baking dish, along with 3 cups of water, 1 pound of chicken breast. This isn't cooked chicken breast, just raw chicken breast that I cubed into kind of like bite-sized pieces. Next, add in 24 ounces of pasta sauce. You could use any type of pasta sauce that you love. And then to give this added flavor, add in a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, and a half a teaspoon of pepper. Give this a really good stir. Now that this is well combined, we are going to cover this tightly with aluminum foil, and this will bake in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 40 minutes. And after 40 minutes of baking, remove the foil and give this a really good stir. You'll notice the pasta is not quite cooked through at this point, and there's some liquid in your pan. Don't worry about it. The pasta will cook through here in a moment, and the liquid will become absorbed. On top of your casserole, sprinkle 1 cup of mozzarella cheese, a 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese, and 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs. Continue to bake this for an additional 15 minutes. And here's the finished product. This chicken Parmesan casserole is out of this world good, and that crunchy panko mixture on the top really makes this taste similar to your traditional chicken Parmesan. This is full of flavor. I serve this alongside of steamed green beans. Now we're making this teriyaki chicken casserole. So on my cutting board, we're going to start out by cutting up our vegetables. I diced a yellow onion and a red bell pepper. Now I'm going to cut 2 heads of broccoli into smaller pieces. I have a 9x13 baking dish right here. I sprayed it with nonstick spray. Next, I added in about 1 pound of cubed chicken breast. Now add those cut up vegetables right into your baking dish. And I found some carrots in my fridge last minute, so I sliced those carrots into smaller pieces. It's about 1/2 cup of sliced carrots. The carrots are optional. You don't have to add them in if you don't want to. Now I'm adding in 3/4 cup of teriyaki sauce. I'm using the Panda Express teriyaki sauce. I found it at Walmart, but any brand of teriyaki sauce will certainly work. Give this a stir so everything is coated well. Bake this in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes, or until the chicken's cooked through and the broccoli's tender. Here's my plate of food. We served ours alongside of a bed of a little bit of steamed white rice. This is so flavorful and good, and I love this recipe because you can make it your own by adding different vegetables if you'd like, subtracting different vegetables, really doing what you want to it. It's so good. Now we are making this chicken bacon ranch lasagna, and it is as good as it sounds. Into this pot of boiling water, I added in 9 lasagna noodles, and I'll cook them according to the package instructions. Over to this pot on my stove, I'm going to add in 7 strips of bacon, and I'm going to cook the bacon until it's to the crispiness that I like it to be. If you don't care for bacon, you could always use turkey bacon as a substitute, or just leave the bacon out. But now that my bacon is crispy, I removed it to a plate, and I'll set it to the side. I did save about 2 tablespoons of the bacon grease in my pan, and then I stirred in a tablespoon of minced garlic. Now add in 3 cans of evaporated milk, and then toss in 4 tablespoons of ranch seasoning. This is going to give it great flavor. Let this simmer on your stove for about 3 to 5 minutes to let this sauce thicken up. Now that my sauce has thickened, I'm going to add in 8 ounces of cream cheese, and make sure you cube your cream cheese. This is going to help it melt down a little bit better and a little bit more evenly. Let the cream cheese cook in with the sauce for about 5 minutes. You do want to stir it often just to get that cream cheese smooth. But now that my cream cheese is smooth like this, it is time to assemble our lasagna. So into my 9x13 baking dish, I'm going to add some sauce just right into the bottom of that baking baking dish. Then you're going to add 3 lasagna noodles. Next, add a layer of cooked shredded chicken on top, and then about 1/3 cup of shredded cheddar cheese and 1/3 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese, and then sprinkle some bacon on top of that. Repeat this for 3 layers total. Cover the top tightly with foil and bake this in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for 40 minutes. Once it's out of the oven, remove the foil and bake it for an additional 15 minutes, and then you could enjoy it. If you are like me, a fan of the flavors chicken, bacon, and ranch together, you will absolutely love this lasagna. This is not your typical boring dinner that you will have every day. This dinner is so scrumptious and the texture is spot on perfect. Now we are making this butter chicken and rice. So over to my greased 9x13 baking dish, add in 1 cup of uncooked jasmine rice. Now add in 3 tablespoons of melted butter. Next, 1.5 cups of chicken broth. Now I'm going to add in a tablespoon of minced garlic. This is fresh minced garlic. If you also have fresh minced ginger, add in a tablespoon of that, but I just didn't have fresh minced ginger on hand, so that's why I didn't add it in. Next, I added in a 14-ounce can of fire roasted diced tomatoes, followed by 1.5 pounds of chicken thighs that I cubed. Now season this with a teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, then 2 teaspoons of gram masala seasoning, and then 1 teaspoon of ground ginger. If you add the fresh ginger, you don't have to use the ground ginger. Give this a stir, and I do want to let you know, if you don't want to use chicken thighs, you could use chicken breast as a substitute. I just like the chicken thighs because they're a little bit more juicy for this recipe. Cover this tightly with foil and bake this in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, give this a stir, then bake this for an additional 15 minutes or until the rice is fluffy tender. Oh man, if you're a fan of butter chicken, you really need to try this butter chicken casserole. We love to squeeze ours with a little bit of fresh lime juice and fresh cilantro over the top. It gives it added flavor. And then we always like to serve it with naan bread. I just found these little naan bread pieces at my store, but this is so flavorful and good. Now we are making this French onion casserole alongside the best wild rice in the world. I'm starting out by peeling and dicing my 4 medium-sized russet potatoes. I brought them over to a greased 9x13 baking dish and I added them in there. Next, I added in 1.5 pounds of cubed chicken breast and then 10 ounces of French onion soup. Now I'm adding in a packet of Lipton onion soup mix. These packets just have a lot of flavor in them. Now I'm adding in 1 cup of shredded provolone cheese and I'm going to give this a stir. Cover this with foil and bake this in a preheated oven to 375 degrees for about 45 minutes. And I don't know if you remember, but a couple weeks ago in my slow cooker video, I made this wild rice alongside of the pulled beef sandwiches, and a lot of people asked me for the recipe, so I'm going to share the recipe now. Into this big pot, I added 1 cup of wild rice along with a tablespoon of butter, 1 3/4 cup of vegetable broth, and then for the seasonings, a teaspoon of onion powder, paprika, salt, and pepper. Give this a stir and let this simmer on your stove covered for about 40 to 45 minutes. But now that my French onion casserole is out of the oven, I am going to just stir it well, and then I am going to sprinkle on about 1/2 cup more provolone cheese. Continue to bake this in your oven for an additional 15 to 20 minutes or until the potatoes are tender. But now that my rice is cooked through, I am just going to add in the rest of the ingredients. So stir in a tablespoon of minced garlic. Now I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of heavy cream along with 1 cup of shredded Colby Jack cheese, and last but not least, a 12-ounce frozen bag of broccoli. Give this a stir and let this cook covered on your stove for 5 to 10 minutes or until the broccoli is tender. Here's what it will look like once it's cooked through. So good. This French onion chicken is so rich. I know a lot of different French onion chickens take like hours and hours to make, but this one has very little prep, and then you just stick it in the oven and the oven does all the work for you. And then that wild rice on the side is like the most perfect side dish. You can make it for holidays or just dinner. It's just super duper good and really, really flavorful. Today we are making one of my favorites of all time, this chicken Alfredo casserole. It's so good. To the pan on my stove, I added a tablespoon of olive oil and a tablespoon of butter. Once the butter melted down, I added in 2 chicken breasts. I did slice my chicken breasts in half horizontally, so it appears as 4 chicken breasts. I'm just seasoning the chicken generously on both sides with a dash of salt, pepper, onion powder, Italian seasoning, oregano, and paprika, but you could use any seasonings that you love. I'm going to just let the chicken cook through at this point, and while the chicken's cooking away, into this large pot of boiling water, I'm adding in 10 ounces of penne pasta. I'll just let this pasta cook according to the package instructions. Now that my chicken's cooked through, I'm removing it to a plate, and I'm going to set this plate to the side. Into the same pan that the chicken was cooked in, I tossed in a tablespoon of minced garlic. I gave the garlic a stir, and then I added in a tablespoon of flour. I just stirred that flour in until it looked like a beautiful golden color. Now I added in a half a cup of chicken broth, and I'm just going to let this simmer until the sauce thickens just like this. Now add in 2 cups of heavy cream and let the heavy cream simmer for a couple of minutes to start to thicken. Now that the sauce is a little bit thicker, I'm adding in 2 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese and 1 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese. I gave this a really good stir and I let this cheese melt down. Now I'm adding in 2 cups of spinach. If you don't want to add the spinach in, you certainly don't have to, but just stir that spinach in and let it get wilted down just a little bit. Now over to this large bowl, I am adding in the cooked pasta that we just cooked up earlier. Next, add in 12 ounces of steamed broccoli. If you don't want to add the broccoli in, you don't have to, or you could add in any other veggies that you like. Next, add in the chicken. I just cubed that chicken up, and then the sauce. Give this a really good stir. I have a 9x13 baking dish right here. I added the casserole right in there and I spread it out. Just look at how saucy and delicious it looks. Over the top of the casserole, I saved some of the chicken just to put on top to make it look extra nice. I also sprinkled some more Parmesan cheese on the top. This baked in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. I absolutely love this casserole because it has everything in it. You don't need to serve it with any side dishes. You have the carbs, the protein, and the veggies. This is so rich and delicious. It's also very easy to throw together. You need to give this one a try. I'm sure you're going to love it. Now we're making this chicken noodle casserole, so into this large pot of boiling water on my stove, I'm adding in 12 ounces of egg noodles. Just cook them according to the package instructions, and once the egg noodles are cooked, just strain them and set them to the side. Over to this large bowl, I'm adding in my chicken. I'm adding in about 1.5 cups of cooked shredded chicken. You could use any type of cooked shredded chicken that you like. Next, add in 1/2 cup of sour cream, then 10 ounces of cream of mushroom soup. I'm using the cream of mushroom soup with roasted garlic. It is oh so flavorful. Then add in a 10-ounce can of cream of chicken soup. Next, add in 1 diced yellow onion. Then go ahead and add in 1 cup of shredded Colby Jack cheese, followed by 3/4 cup of milk. Then add in 1 cup of frozen mixed vegetables. Then for the seasonings, I'm adding in a teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and dried thyme. Give this a good stir until everything is well combined. Now stir in the cooked egg noodles that we just made up. Give it a really super duper good stir, and then you are going to add this into a 9x13 baking dish. Spread it out to the best of your ability, and then you're going to sprinkle 1/2 cup more cheese over the top. If you're not a cheese fan, you don't have to add the cheese. Bake this in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 28 minutes. You will find this recipe on page 67 in my cookbook. It's in the casserole section, and I have 8 sections in this this cookbook, ranging from like breakfast. I have sheet pan meals, casseroles, slow cooker recipes, desserts, and so much more. I have it all in this cookbook, but once this is out of the oven, you can serve it up. If you are a chicken pot pie fan, you will absolutely love this. I gotta tell you, this is almost better than chicken pot pie in my opinion. It has like the noodles instead of like the traditional pie crust. It really is so good. It's so rich and so simple to make. Now we're getting started on this lower carb fajita casserole, so I'm going to begin by cutting up my vegetables. I'm just dicing 1 red onion, 1 red bell pepper, and an orange bell pepper. Over to my big bowl, I'm adding those veggies right in there. Next, you're going to want to add in 3 cups of cooked shredded chicken. You could boil your chicken up on the stove or the Instant Pot, or I just used part of a rotisserie chicken. Now I'm adding in 6 ounces of softened cream cheese. You want to make sure the cream cheese is softened just so it's easier to stir. Then add in 2 tablespoons of taco seasoning, followed by 1 cup of Monterey Jack cheese. Give this a stir, and then once it looks like this, you're going to want to take it over to a casserole dish. Spray the casserole dish with nonstick spray, then add the casserole right in there. Spread it out to the best of your ability, and then I sprinkled more Monterey Jack cheese over the top. Cover this with foil and bake this in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 30 minutes, and then uncover it and bake it for an additional 14 minutes. Here's my bowl of food. I served ours over a bed of white rice, but you could serve this over tortilla chips, you could serve this in tortillas, or you could just eat it plain. It really is so flavorful and so good. This is a really great lower carb option. This one is one of my favorites. Now we're making this French onion chicken. To begin, we are going to slice our large yellow onion into smaller pieces. Over to the pan on my stove, I'm adding in 2 tablespoons of butter. Once it's good and melty, I added our onion in there. We're going to kind of caramelize the onion, just cook it on a lower heat for about 8-ish minutes until it is a nice golden brown color. Then you will want to remove it to a plate and set this plate to the side. In the same pan we cooked the onion in, we are going to sear our chicken. So I have 2 large chicken breasts right here. I seasoned them on each side with a dash of paprika, salt, and pepper. Just sear the chicken on a higher heat for about 2 minutes on each side, so we're not completely cooking the chicken through at this point. Once it's through searing, add the cooked onion in there along with a can of French onion soup. You're going to let this simmer for around 5 minutes. This is going to reduce the liquid down and make the sauce a little bit thicker. Now we're going to add it into a greased casserole dish. Just add the chicken and the sauce and the onions right in there. Just dump it in, go at it. And then over the top, you're going to add some mozzarella cheese. I added about 3/4 cup of that, and I did try a new type of mozzarella cheese today. It was this creamy melt Philadelphia one, and it was a lot creamier, so I did like it and I do recommend it. This baked on 350 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes, or until the chicken was cooked through. We served this dinner over mashed potatoes, and we poured some of the gravy that was in the casserole dish over the mashed potatoes. I also served this with steamed Brussels sprouts, but let me tell you, when I tell you that I love a meal, I mean it, and this has to be one of my all-time favorite dinners. I know this is a bold statement to make, but this is phenomenal. Now we're making this chicken stuffing zucchini bake, and I've made versions of this on my channel in the past, but I love it so much, so we're making another version of it today. I sliced my 3 medium-sized zucchinis into half moons, and then I set them to the side. Into this bowl, I'm adding my 6-ounce box of stovetop stuffing. Into the stuffing, you are going to add in 3 tablespoons of melted butter and give this a really good stir to coat the stuffing in the melted butter. You're going to set this mixture to the side. I pulled out a super duper big bowl, and into this bowl you're going to add about 3 cups of cooked shredded chicken. Again, cook your chicken however you choose to do so and shred it up. Then I added a 1/2 cup of shredded sharp cheddar cheese along with a can of cream of mushroom soup. Next you'll add in the zucchinis that we sliced up earlier along with half of the stuffing mixture that we made up, and then you're going to add in a 1/2 cup of sour cream and give this a really good mix. After I placed my casserole in my greased 9x13 baking dish, I tried to spread it out as even as possible. And over the top of the casserole, you're going to sprinkle about 1/2 cup more shredded sharp cheddar cheese on, and then sprinkle the remaining stuffing over the top. Bake this in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 35 to 40 minutes, or until the stuffing is nice and golden brown on the top. If you're a big stuffing and zucchini fan like me, you will absolutely love this casserole. It has to be one of my all-time favorite casseroles. I served it alongside of a side salad with spring mix, fresh carrots, tomatoes, croutons, and then for the ranch dressing, I've really been liking this Bolthouse Farms ranch recently. I think